All right, let me change the view real quick. Go. Cool. All right, so another session of the Portland Python Pirates. My name is Chris. I'll be running the show tonight. Just to let you know, our website's temporarily down due to some piracy of our domain. So I snagged another domain and I'm currently in the process of getting that all hooked up. I know, ironic, right? Yeah. Anyway, so once that's back up and running, should be in the next week or so, I will ping everybody on the Slack channel. So we've got organizers, Chris Thompson, that's me. We got Brian Holman, so some new faces jumping in to help out, and David Molina also on deck to help out. So I don't know if they're both here tonight, but I know David Molina is. So feel free to ping any of us with any questions you might have. Our guiding principles, we're inclusive, so all skill levels, all backgrounds are welcome. We are Python focused, so we don't really dip into anything else such as Go or JavaScript or anything like that. There are other meetups that can help you out there, but we are Python focused. Progressive learning, so we try to start easy in the beginning of the year and kind of move forward from there. I'm doing my best to hold on to that strategy, but we've got some cool talks coming up. I can't promise they'll be beginner, but I can promise they'll be interesting. So stay tuned for that. And then we are collaborative. So feel free to jump in at any time with questions or anything like that. You can drop them in the chat. You can interrupt me, anything like that, especially to keep me honest, because I can get off track and ramble, or maybe I've misconfigured something. So if you see something, say something. All right, so we've got linters, formatters, and Git hooks tonight, something we have never done, which I'm excited about and surprised about because it's kind of important. So we've got this Python developer in desperate need of a formatter as he's holding his ruler up against his screen, trying to figure out the indentation level. So we're going to go with news and resources. We'll do the presentation, and I should change this to like announcements or something. It's not really news, but anyway. And then Q&A. So I'll leave some time at the end if you guys want to hang out and just chat or ask questions or say add on. Feel free. We'll have plenty of time at the end. Okay, just a couple of resources / announcements, which I should change there. So we have a meetup coming up from a gentleman who I have come to know and love, Murillo Gustolini. So this guy was named by some periodical, in data science, as one of the 2023's data scientists to watch. And so he just got named that. I actually scheduled this with him before that, so even more exciting. So if you're interested in learning how to do hyperparameter tuning for machine learning models using sklearn grid search and pipelines, definitely check this out. He is awesome. He'll dive deep into that. You can ask all your fun machine learning questions, related or unrelated. Definitely come and hammer this guy with questions because he is a bucket of knowledge. So I'll drop that link. That is a meetup coming up on February 15th. That will be our next meetup, unless someone schedules before then, but I expect that to be our next meetup. And we have more coming down the pipe, so stay tuned. We have a lot of meetups this year that we're getting together for this year. And in the past, just to let everybody know, in the past, we've really concentrated on like Python, right? We figured, hey, there's other great meetups in the area and in everywhere because we're all remote now, but doing data science, machine learning, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Python is, part of what's driving the popularity of Python. A big reason Python is so popular is data science and machine learning, right? And data in general. And so we finally gave in, and we're going to start scheduling more data talks. I work as a machine learning engineer, and so it's kind of funny that I haven't scheduled these before, but I think it's finally time to start dipping our toes into there. So I'm going to start scheduling as many cool speakers as possible that work in, data science or data engineering or machine learning, whatever the case may be, get them to come give talks. So this is kind of our kickoff talk for that, where we'll be talking about doing grid search and utilizing scikit-learn pipelines for hyperparameter tuning. So that's my spiel about that. One thing that I think everybody really needs to subscribe to, it is so helpful for me to discover new packages related to all sorts of Python things, from ethical hacking to networking to machine learning and other things, just Python tricks in general. Real Python weekly newsletter is amazing. I'm subscribed to several newsletters, and this is one of them that I use every single week. I take time, I go through, find articles that interest me, and I go and learn something new. And I really, really encourage you to find something like that. If it's this one, great. If it's something different, great. But I encourage you to take like one day a week to just explore Python stuff. It's a great way to just, expand your knowledge into maybe about something you already know, to know more, or to learn something new. So maybe this year, try to schedule one day a week to just read Python stuff, right? Discover new stuff. No, it's free. There is paywall for like their classes and stuff. So Ian asked if there's a paywall. So like for a lot of their classes and stuff, like, yes, you have to pay, and for several of potentially for some of their like learning paths or whatever, but in general, their articles are still free. At least a lot of them are. And their newsletter is definitely free and includes stuff that's not on Real Python website per se. Like there's tons of other resources that they offer through this newsletter that are super, super useful. Just really cool blog posts from around the web and stuff. And actually this talk is inspired by one of those blog posts I saw on that newsletter. So yeah, it's really, it's not just Real Python stuff. But I hope they don't put it behind a paywall. It's such a good resource. So anyway, I just posted the newsletter. I also encourage you to check out their podcast. I listen to that from time to time. I think it's really good. And oftentimes they're talking about stuff that you'll also find in the newsletter. So it's cool to hear it in different ways. Data Science Simplified. So this is actually a new one. I also subscribe to her newsletter, and she sends out every single day, sends out a new a new little tidbit, right? And you can see one, a picture of one here, a little tidbit about Python. It might be a package like prefect, right? Something like that, or it just might be a Python trick. The other day she had ordered dicts, right? Ordered dictionaries. And so right now she's on a wedding vacation or something, but she's reposting. But check out her blog. Sign up for her newsletter, receive those tidbits in your inbox every single day. You can pick up a little Python trick here and there, and then just bookmark whatever you like, right? Or save whatever you like into a folder in your email. That's what I do, and it's great to refer back to. If I'm like searching for something like, I wish I had something that did, X, it's a great way to keep resources around, or however you do it, right? Okay, so those are the resources I'm pitching today / upcoming meetups. Now, we want you. All right, so this year we are trying to get away from me presenting all the time, or some of the the organizers presenting all the time. We want people to give talks, and I'm just going to give you a short pitch on that. Anything goes, right? Like if whatever you're learning, whatever you're doing with Python, come present on it. It doesn't have to be even a formal slideshow or anything like that. If you have a topic that you're interested in, a lot of times presenting on it or signing up to present on it is really helpful for learning it, right? Just doing this linting formatting thing, I've done this before, but just having to dig back through it and look at Git hooks and look at all this stuff, like super Ian is on fire tonight. So anyway, it helps to learn, a new topic. If you don't even know the topic, I have done presentations. I've put up meetups for topics that I didn't even know about until after I put up the meetup. So sometimes just putting that pressure on yourself to learn something is a great way to learn something, right? So use us, feel free. there is a form. I will get that link right now. I'm going to drop it. There's a form you can fill out. Pick a date. If it works for us, that's cool. If not, we'll let you know. We'll coordinate. But nevertheless, if you come up with a topic, use our Google form, fill it out, and we'll get that and get back to you and coordinate. And we plan on helping speakers too. So if you're a new speaker, not quite sure how to get started, we're putting together a lot of like base templates and content to try to help speakers organize their thoughts and put on a good presentation. So we're trying to put together a little like presentation tip package for you. Anyway, all right, enough talk. Let us know if you want to talk, give a talk, I should say. And it is demo time. So let's get going. Any questions before we get started or comments? Sweet, quiet crowd. All right, so I set up something cool. I'm kind of experimenting with this, so feel free to say it's awesome or say it sucks. Either way, for this presentation, I'll be using something called GitPod. So GitPod is an open source, it's similar to like GitHub code spaces. It's open source. It's really cool. There's lots of there's a great free tier. It's like 50 hours a month of free tier. And what it is it sets you up with a workspace for Visual Studio Code. So you can code online and don't have to worry about being having VS Code installed on your system. And you can work in the cloud. You can work off their compute. Again, it gives you a really generous free tier every month. I think it's really cool. I really like it. Also open source, always trying to support open source. So if you are going to use this repo, I also have, right. I'm doing something else new, and I will share that now. What I'm gonna do is copy a web link, right? And it's a link to Notion, a Notion template. It has all the instructions for this presentation. So between the repo and this Notion template, you should be able to recreate everything we're doing tonight. I'm actually going to follow it. I've already gone through it. It works really well. And I'm going to go through it tonight while I'm presenting. So what I recommend is that you kind of just like watch what I'm doing tonight, not try to like get everything done and follow along, because you might lose something or not quite follow. So I encourage you to like watch tonight, but use the template, the Notion template, and the repo and go back through this after we're done to do it yourself and really hammer it home. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fork this repo. I want everybody to fork this repo. Don't try to push because it won't work. Don't clone it directly if you are doing locally. Create your own fork in your own username, okay? There is only one branch, so you only need to copy the main branch, and it should give you a fresh copy of this repo here in your under your own username. So copy it from the Python Pirates. Oh, maybe I should give you the GitHub. That would help. Let me copy that. I don't think I posted that. There. Okay, so it's at our GitHub, and then Python linting formatting is the repo. It's not really a link. Did it not copy link address? That's what I want. There we go. Okay, cool. So I have forked the repo. I now have my own copy. If you don't know what forking is, in the README, there is a link to fork, right? So if you don't know how to fork a repo or what that means, click on this link and it'll give you a good explanation. It's linked to the GitHub docs. So what I do is I take, right. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to gitpod.io, you're gonna hashtag, and then you're gonna paste the link, right? So you go to this HTTPS or the HTTPS link right up in this code drop down, right? You copy that, and then we come in here and we say gitpod.io, and then we hashtag and we put our link behind it. These instructions are in the README. Don't worry about like, oh no, I need to write this down. It's in the README. Don't worry. But what that'll do, first, if you don't have Gitpod already, it'll ask you to sign up. Then it'll take you to a workspace. So it prepares a workspace for you. So provisioning a VM, right? And I've configured it with a file that installs all the necessary dependencies that you need for this to work, right? And I've tested it in here. I know it works. So you see it installing all of our dependencies here. There's lots more that we can do. It's a very simple setup. But what this allows us to do is like not worry about, you know, virtual environments and like all this stuff. While it is important, like, I think this is a great way to get up and running for those of you that just don't want to mess with it, right? Plus it's fun for demo purposes. So we're gonna do it from here. Okay, so this is a VS Code, right? Just like Code Spaces is running on a VM. You see a Git pod here. So I'm in a browser right now and we're gonna go for it. Okay, so what we're doing is sort of, yeah, exactly. It's similar to Docker. So I am honestly almost not a believer in virtual environments anymore. I'll let you know right now that I'm moving I'm moving my developer team at work over to dev containers. I think virtual environments were great for what they were, but there's so many new things coming out, including, I highly suggest you check out dev environments, where you can basically launch your VS Code inside of a Docker container. Well, you work from VS Code inside of Docker container, and you can share that dev container with any other dev, right? So it configures an entire environment for you without you even having to worry about the virtual environment. Does it work on my machine? You're on Windows, I'm on a Mac. Like, it's just a container, and I think that's such a better way to go. So I'm basically moving my whole team over to it, kicking and screaming, but we're doing it nonetheless. And honestly, they're enjoying it thus far. They see a lot of benefit from it, so it's been great. Anyway, okay, let's keep going. So we're Python linting and formatting. So let me go over what's in here right now. You can see it's pretty bare, right? So here's that git pod YAML. You can use this YAML to do pre-installs, any work you need to do to configure your environment. You put it in this git pod YAML. So super cool. Definitely check out git pod. Great documentation. I think I might link to it. If not, I'll add it to the Notion template. We have a git ignore, right? Ignoring all the usual stuff. A license, MIT. Really simple fast API application. Literally all it does is, right, I pulled it right off the Fast API website. This is not a class on Fast API, right? Like, I'm not trying to teach you how to build APIs tonight. So I did the most simple possible thing we could do, which is just return hello world, right? From a get, right? And we can fire that up, right? So give me 1 second, actually. README requirements, right? Here's all your requirements here. Okay, so I'll fire that up. We can run the command uvicorn, which is a Whiskey server. If you want to know more about Whiskey servers, I would suggest you look them up. Look up uvicorn. They've got great docs too. And what it's doing is it's a server that serves our app locally here, right? So localhost, right? We see localhost on port 8000. Our application is started up. What's cool, one thing to point out on Gitpod, you can actually so if you've ever used ngrok before, you know that you can create HTTPS connections, right? From it basically proxies from your local machine out to ngrok and then off to the world, right? So it kind of so you're able to run an app locally, but still expose it to the world. Gitpod has the same thing. So I could make this public and you could see it right now. You could go use this right now, which is super, super cool. And I'm definitely going to use it for future demonstrations where I want you to like explore an application. Like if we ever did Fast API, right? I could make this public. You could access it from your computer. It's very, very cool. For now, we're going to open a preview. It opens a separate tab and we see here, message, hello world. Super simple, right? So that's all it does. Not very exciting, but that's not the point. So let's get into it. So that's our Fast API. The only thing we need to do, right, for the setup is fork the repository and then follow README steps to launch on Gitpod or locally. We've done that. So we're going to set up our pre-commit hook. Okay, so let me go into kind of what Git hooks are. So Git hooks are something that allow you to run a script at some point in your Git workflow, right? So tonight, we're going to concentrate on something called pre-commit hooks. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It happens before you're able to commit locally to your repository, okay, or to your local branch. So Git hooks can be executed on the server side, so on our remote, right, or on the client side, so on our laptop, right? Tonight we're going to set up the pre-commit hooks, which are on the client side. All right, and in our local, first step we're going to do is we're going to create. Let me grab this here. We're going to create a file, and it is called. It's hidden file called pre-commit config.yaml. Cool. Okay. And what's cool about Notion is they have a copy button where we just copy things in. All right. So what's going on here? This all looks crazy, Chris. Okay. So this is the configuration file for our pre-commit hook, hence the name. And we give it a version. Now you give it a repo, right? So in this case, it's from pre-commit hooks. There's lots of repos we're gonna be pulling from tonight. And they have to be compatible with pre-commit hooks. You can't just give it any repo, right? So it had to have been pre-configured, and all of the packages we're using tonight are pre-configured to work with Git hooks. So every time we add a package, we're gonna add something, a section to this YAML file, okay? So here you can go look at the repo. This is what it looks like, has a bunch of Git hooks, right? And Git hooks, again, are nothing but scripts. So you can see, let's pick one, docstring first. Or no, let's do executables have shebang. We go down, here's the executables have shebangs py. We can look at what it's doing, right? So it checks for that shebang line in a script, right? A bash script that you have. If it does, or any script really. And if it doesn't have that, it will complain at you, right? And we'll see those complaints tonight. I have many configured, so get ready. Okay, so there's a bunch. I put some comments next to ones that weren't exactly clear, right? They're not great. But if you go to the precommit.com, pre-commit.com, you will find a whole bunch of these listed there, as well as how to make your own pre-commit hooks, right? So if you have some custom workflow you want to configure, you can create your own, and you can, have it work here, right? So these are all built in. These are, just ones you can just use. So they're all, yeah, feel free to make custom ones too. That's a great way to learn. Okay, so we have these configured. We have our pre-commit YAML. What are we going to do? We're going to do pre-commit. We're going to install pre-commit, right? Or the pre-commit hooks. So we'll run that, and it says installed at .git/hooks/precommit. So we can actually go in there. I also encourage you to look, if you haven't ever before, inside the Git dir, .git. There's a lot of useful information, and it can really help you understand how Git works under the hood. So definitely explore that and look up some blog posts on that. I think it's really useful to know. But here you see we have a bunch of sample, right? Like Git hooks, pre-commit, sample, right? These are just examples of pre-commits. But we have the hooks repository, and what we can do is we can say pre-commit run all files. Okay, so what's this going to do? This is going to run all of our checks that we just did, right? Or that we just put into this file on all the files in our repo, okay? Now, one thing to note, right? And this is something that is kind of a gotcha. Probably should have put it in the template too. I will do that. Is pre-commit hooks will only run on automatically, like when I press commit and these hooks run, they will only run on files that have changed. So anything that's staged, right? So if I just pushed commit right now, it would only run it on this pre-commit config YAML, right? And henceforth, it will always do that. So if you ever want to check files that haven't changed, right? That aren't sitting in the staging area, aren't ready to be committed, you can run this command and it will run it. And we will run it one more time further down the line. But so we run that to check all of our files initially. Oh, it would help if I'm not in the Git directory. Okay. All right, here we go. So we run that, initializes the environment. It'll It'll spit out a bunch of information and we'll check out what happens. It does not take a few minutes, it takes a few seconds. Or it shouldn't. Okay, there we go. Okay, so pass, skipped. Notice that we don't have any executables yet, so this was skipped. We don't have a JSON file yet, so it knows that and was skipped. Checks for merge conflicts, checks for YAML, right? Like all these checks have run, and which is awesome. We should have one more up here. I'm actually, no, that's fine. There's one more that checks for big files over, I forget what amount. So you can actually have another hook that runs that checks to make sure you're not committing some gigantic file to your repo. But there's a couple really good ones, like detect private key. Man, is that useful, right? No more private keys in repos, right? Okay, but we notice which test failed, and that is the fix end of files, right? And it gives you a pretty nice like explanation, right? The hook ID, end of file fixer, exit code, right? In this case, 1, it failed. Files were modified by this hook. So it tells you that it has automatically modified this, and it tells you what file it fixed. It was fixing main.py. So notice in our staging area that main.py is sitting here now. We didn't do anything, right? So let's look at what those changes were. It was fixing the white space at the end of the file. So it expects there to be one blank line at the end of every file. Now, if you don't like that, if you don't want any blank lines at the end of your file, that's totally fine. Don't put the check, right? But we put it here. We see that it checked for it. It gave us the fix already automatically. Now we can stage our, and by the way, I don't use Git on command line almost ever anymore. I love using VS Code because I don't have to enter any commands, and it keeps me from making mistakes, right? So I can cherry pick and click, and I usually am not a GUI guy, but in this case, man, is it useful to have. You can also undo commits very, very easily, you know, all that stuff that's kind of like the commands get a little hairy, right? It's part of, I think you're thinking PEP 8, right? So it's likely part of like, yeah. Mm-hmm. So Ian was saying, is that part of PEP 8? And yeah, that's like one thing, you know, there's these standards. I forget if it's the Python. I should know that. Someone look it up and post it in chat. But PEP is kind of these standards, these agreed upon standards that the community has said, this is the way we expect Python code to look, right? So PEP 8. And so it's conforming to that. And so anyway, so we'll commit these changes. So we, you know, added pre-commit, right? And we will commit that. All our checks will run again. Oh, did we have another one? Ah, look, added the trailing space, right? Okay, and I will add that to the Notion template because I thought I got all those, but anyway. So it added the space because we didn't have it at the bottom of that YAML file. So it adds it to all the files. Again, if this is not something you want, do not use the commit or make your own, right? Make it only work for certain files or 2 spaces or whatever, right? It's totally customizable. But we're using the vanilla, right? Just what comes with it, which honestly is all I've really needed. I've never made my own that I know of. Yeah, I don't think so. So, but do whatever you want. It's the great thing about open source, right? Okay, so we checked that the version, right? We checked that the changes, as soon as you can commit, if it lets you commit, that is how you know that all of your files are formatted correctly according to the hooks that you're using, okay? So once you're in this and you can finally push your changes, that's what sync changes means. It pushes and pulls. You can go up here and just do push if you want. But anywho, that's how you know. As soon as it lets you commit, you've passed all your checks. Okay. Nice. Any questions before we keep going? Nice. Okay. So the next up we have Black. So Black is a very opinionated Python code formatter. Okay, there are not a lot of configurations that come with it, right? There's not a lot of you know, variables or configuration files to fill out. It basically works out of, not basically, it works right out of the box. You can use it immediately. which I love because I don't want to configure anything because I'm quite lazy. Now, if you need stuff, there are configurations for it. I have never really had to configure it. Like the only configuration I've seen done is like, it comes out of the box, pre-configured to have 88, what do you call it? 88 character spaces or whatever, like a line length, right? So your line length is only allowed 88 characters out of the box. We kicked it up at one point, at another job I had, to 120. You can configure that. There's a couple more that you can configure, but overall, I'd say it just out of the box is fine. If something's wrong, feel free to change it. There's also others that are much more configurable, like, I can't even, oh, dang it. I forgot all of them now. Well, anyway, there's others that are more configurable. Post them in the chat. I'm forgetting off the top of my head the other ones now. But anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add to our pre-commit YAML, right? Okay, so let's do that. We're going to add, that didn't copy over very well. Let's try that again. I'm going to copy this and like that. There we go. Okay, so notice now we're at github.com black, right? So black is configured to work with pre-commit hooks. We grab version 22.10. That is the most recent version as of today. I made sure all my versions were up to date, and I'll tell you about something that I ran into later. Okay, so we have black, great. So basically it'll work now, right? Okay, one thing we need to do in VS Code is go to File. We're going to go to Preferences. We're going to go to Settings. You can also use Command, comma, or I believe it would be Control, comma on a Windows machine. We're going to come in here, and there's two things we're going to do. One, we're going to do Python formatting. So here we go. Or no, sorry. Formatting. Oh, make sure this is set to black. So just make sure your Python formatter, right? Oh, here's the other one. AutoPep8, YAP, right? Or black. There's others. We're going to set it to black. Okay. We set it to black. The other setting we want is format on save. So it's already checked for me. Hopefully it's already checked for you, but it formats the file. It uses black to format the file as you put Control S, right? So when you Control S, it will allow you to, or it'll auto format the file before you even do the commit, right? Which is great. If you don't set this, it'll run on commit. I kind of like it like right when I save, because if you have auto save on, then every time you finish something in a file, it'll just like pause, format, right? Like that's cool. I like that. So I keep that on. If you don't like it, don't turn it on. All right, here we go. Done with that. So those are the only two settings you have to configure. We have our pre-config. We put black in our pre-commit config YAML. Remember the extra space at the bottom. I have it open twice. Don't know why. Cool. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to grab a file. We're going to create a file, and we're going to test black. So we're going to create a file. The file is going to be called fruit.json. Okay, obviously it's a JSON file. You can catch that. Okay, and it's all messy. I don't like that, right? It looks all bad. Right? It's not formatted right. Well, I'm going to put command save. There. Formats your JSON for you, right? Now it's not auto saving right now, but I pushed command save because I wanted to give pause and show you the magic, right? So if you want to turn on auto saving, you can come into here, and which I usually have on, and I think you go to file. Oh, auto save is on. I wonder if I didn't do it. Anyway, give that space at the bottom because otherwise it will complain. And let me make sure to put that in this file. Oh, it is in the file. Anyway, so notice it formatted our JSON for us. Well, that's great, right? And we added that. Okay, so add black to pre-commit, right? A nice commit message. We'll commit that. Oh, I need to stage. There you go. Commit. Awesome. It's running our pre-commit hooks. Takes a minute. Takes a minute. Takes a minute. There it goes. Okay, cool. So it passed all our checks. We're good to go. And we know black is working because it formatted this. Okay, awesome. So that is black. Next up, oh, any questions on black? I have links to the GitHub repo or maybe the documentation in the Notion template. So feel free to, or not even feel free, definitely go check that out to get more information about black. There's lots and lots of stuff with it. I'm just showing you the basics here. Cool. So as I said, black comes with some defaults, right? Oh, by the way, the next thing we're setting up is going to be something called isort. Isort is a really cool library that does something that is one of my pet peeves, and that is organizing your import statements. Okay, so when I come here, right, this only has one import statement. We're going to add a couple more. But when you have a bunch of import statements, they should be grouped, one, alphabetically, two, each section should be, well, let's hold off. But isort will organize those for you. We'll get to how you should organize import statements here in a minute. And you're like, I didn't know you're supposed to organize import statements. And I say, yeah, that's right. So I'll show you how to do that, so you never have to even worry about it. We'll set it up so you don't ever have to think about it. But it's definitely one of my pet peeves when doing code reviews, because it's easier to just know where things are. I don't like them all jumbled up. Okay, so, and maybe that's anal, I don't know. Maybe, please feel free to comment if you disagree. Okay, so we're going to create this PyProject toml. So PyProject tomls are common configuration files for packaging Python modules, right, or applications. In this case, what we're using it for is to make sure that our isort tool, right, is uses the profile black. The reason we do this is because by default, as I said, black's default line length is 88, right? And so isort actually, various versions have different lengths, but it tends to not be 88. So if you install isort, if you add this configuration, it will make sure that it uses line length of 88 and any other configurations that black expects, right? Not isort. So this makes it compatible with black, so you don't run into any weirdness down the line. Okay. Another thing we need to do, as always, we need to add a section to our pre-commit config. By the way, to find these pre-commit configs, they usually have them in the documentation of the package that you want to use. Okay, so if you're looking for something or wondering if something has a pre-commit hook, right, or is compatible, look in their documentation, just search for pre-commit, and likely you will find it there, right? So in terms of isort, you can go to isort's documentation. They have one. That's where I got these. These are just copy and paste it from the documentation, okay? One thing to be wary of, and this is the gotcha, right? This is the gotcha. I found out, and I can't remember, I couldn't find what documentation it was in. I can't remember if it was black or isort, but they use a version 5.11.2 or something like that, right? And it is incompatible with another package we'll use later on, Flake 8. It starts bugging out later on. Has some weird thing that happens, or actually maybe even before that, but it bugs out on that version. So there was a version released literally 3 days ago that fixes that. And I found the thread that was also released 3 days ago that fixes that. So if you run into a strange error with isort, make sure your version is the newest version, which is 5.12.0, which is the newest version as of today. I don't think other documentation's been updated with this latest version. So just a heads up there. I found that out while I was trying to configure all this stuff. Okay, so we got you out of the way. What we're gonna do is we're gonna see isort in action. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna create a module, and it's just gonna be called test module.py, right? And in test module py, I'm going to put the simplest function ever, hello world, that returns the string hello world, okay? Now I come into my main.py, and I'm going to change my import statements. So instead of just this, we're going to import my module. We're going to import hello world from my module. We're also going to import logging. We will be using those later on. For now, we're just going to show isort sorting these out. And we're still returning the message hello world, right? So nothing's really changed in the functionality. We just are importing a couple more things. Excuse me. Okay, so what we can do is then come over here. We can see made those changes, added to our pre-commit YAML, added so it's compatible with Black. We added the PyProject TOML, and then we created this dumb little module that returns hello world. Okay, so add isort to pre-commit. Cool, commit. Ah, Jesus, stage. Now commit. Committing. It's running those hooks. Give it a second. Uh-oh. What happened? Right? Go to the show output. So we had a hook ID and a file fixer. Okay. So we had 2 problems with our line at the bottom, right? But what I really want to show, so the one that failed was probably this one. Let me see. Yeah, it was that one. So we always have to add this new line at the bottom, right? Unfortunately, I didn't do that. But that's okay. We'll add these. We'll add that first. But what I want to look at is this. Notice what it did. So this is what it looked like when we committed. Notice what isort does. Right? It spread these out, and we can actually see that in the actual file. See, now we have everything organized. And how this is organized, you have any base, right? Base libraries, or I should say libraries that come in base Python, will be at the top, and they will be alphabetical. So if we had more, like if we said import typing would come after logging, right? The second one is any third-party imports. So it puts third-party imports in this section. There'll be a space between these, no matter how many you have in each section. But we have Fast API here, right? A third-party library. The bottom will always be any modules that you are importing. And it knows all of this, and it organizes it for you. That way, if you're ever going to look for things, or you're wondering what things are, you know this is in the base library. This is a third-party library. This is a custom module, okay? So I really like organizing things like that. As these imports become quite large, it can be annoying for them all to be grouped together or mixed and jumbled up. Base library, third party, yours, and alphabetical. It's glorious. I love it. Okay, so we commit that, and it runs the pre-commit hooks. We're good. Okay, all the checks passed. isort is working. Things are looking good. All right. So any questions about isort? So it's a nifty little library. There's not like a lot to it. I mean, there are some configurations, but I think it's really nice. It just adds, right? See, there's some messages. Let me check the messages real quick. I haven't even been looking. 8889 is observed, or rather 7980. Okay, no problem. And by the way, PEP stands for Python Enhancement Proposals. Thanks, Ian. Appreciate that. Okay. And you can go look up all the Python enhancement proposals on Python's website. They have a whole bunch of them that haven't been accepted yet that could be accepted in future iterations of Python. All right. So we have committed our files. They pass all the checks. I sort all of it. So onward and upward, we will now set up something called Flake 8. Okay, so everything up until this point has kind of been formatting, right? Like how our code looks, right? But we haven't checked how our code actually functions, right? And so we have a linter that will check syntax and, well, it checks code syntax. I shouldn't say necessarily the functionality. There are other libraries that may do that, but Flake 8 will check code syntax, right? And tell you how to fix it. So a little bit different than code formatting, and we'll show that here in a minute. Okay. So what we're gonna do is create another file. Yes, another file. I know there's a lot of files. Flake8. It's called .flake8. Okay, Flake8 expects this file. Well, it doesn't expect it, but if you need to make configurations, this is where you do it. You have Flake8 section. You have max line length. Again, we're matching Black's line length. If you think that's absurd, please feel free to change it to 120, 500, whatever you think is right. And then this extend-ignore, I am blanking. I had that earlier and I did not put it. I will make sure to put that into the documentation. I put a link to what it is. Okay, great. So the E208, so when line breaking, blah, blah, blah. Okay. When Black will enforce an equal amount of white space around slice operators. Okay, so that's a colon, right? It'll raise a red flag if you don't have space around colons. This is not PEP8 compliant, so you should include this, extend ignore, and it ignores white space, that warning about white space around colons. That's all that does. Okay, and again, max line length 88. Ian hates this. And then, as always, we will add to our pre-commit config YAML. There is, in fact, a hook for this. So we add Flake8. We have our space at the bottom. Let's also make sure on that Flake8 file. Yes, we do have a space at the bottom. Great. Okay, so now we have Flake8 set up. But remember, right, the only two files we've changed are these two files. So that's the only thing that Flake8 will run against as a pre-commit hook. So what we need to actually do to get it to initially run against all files is run our let's control R this, reverse lookup, use it, it's wonderful. It's wonderful when it works. There it is, pre-commit, run all files. We run that, takes a couple minutes, doing its thing. Running, failed. Flake8 failed, right? So now, and by the way, these are all on purpose. This is for demo purposes. So congratulate me. It took me a while to think of different ways to fail this. So anyway, we notice that it gives us a file, it gives us line, it gives us character, and it tells us what's wrong. Notice that our imports that we pulled in, and hope maybe you noticed this, brownie points if you did, we didn't actually do anything, right, with our import statements. So Flake8's like, no, bro, you got to actually use the stuff that you import. And we're like, all right, that makes sense. That's probably a good policy. So we come back over here and we say, oh, now what are we doing? We're taking a hello world function, which, remember, where are you? Just returns the string hello world, right? And then I have a little logging.info, right? I use the logging module and I say, I am a logging statement. Not a great logging statement. Definitely recommend using better logging statements, but again, demo works. Okay, and then we're gonna return the message, right? So it will be hello world, but we're returning it from a variable versus the actual string in the return statement. Okay, and this is coerced automatically into JSON, by the way. It's a dictionary here, but then Fast API and most web frameworks will coerce it into a JSON object. So, okay, so that's great. Now that we made that change, now that we have those being used, what we can do is we don't have to run it over all files again because we already did, and we know the only thing that was wrong was this. We can commit because we made those changes to that file, and we'll say add Flake8 to pre-commit, and we will commit. Now, probably you should say, like, I changed some stuff like that. These commit messages are kind of lumped together. I'm a big fan of small commit messages, specifically for pull request purposes, right? So that the code reviewers don't have to go through and figure out what the heck you were thinking during that time. The commit statement should reflect that. It's also for you personally, right? Commit messages are great for going back and looking at your code, but again, demo. I'll say it and I'll say it again. All right, so Now we have all of our Git hooks set up, right? Our pre-commit hooks, I should say. So we have all of these guys here, right? We have black, which is formatting our code. We have isort, which is formatting our imports. And we have flake 8, which is linting our code, looking for any syntax errors. So because we were able to commit, we know that we have passed every single one of these checks, and therefore we can run our application. Sweet. So I don't want to run uvicorn all the time, right? Uvicorn main :app -- reload like we did at the beginning. So I'm going to make a little bash script. I am going to put that in there. Okay, cool. I'm going to chmod +x run app. Okay, I made it executable. Cool. So that's great. And just for good measure, I'm going to commit that. So created run app.sh, and I'll commit that. And what happened? All right, let's check it out. This is another check, right? So notice that we have check that executables have shebangs. That is a check, and we have failed. We did not put a shebang at the top of our bash script. It tells you what hook failed, it tells you the exit code, and it tells you how to fix it. Marked executable, but has no or invalid shebang. If it isn't supposed to be executable, you can take away its executable privileges. Otherwise, if it is, double check its shebang. How useful is that? Very useful. It's not just like you failed, you suck, right? It's actually telling you what to do. So we come back into here and we say, sure enough, I did not include a shebang. So what do? We include one. We're using bash in this case. You can use whatever, Zosh or whatever you're using, right? It doesn't have to be bash, but I'm using bash in this case. All right, we come back here, we add, we commit again. We have now fixed our shebang, and it let us commit. We're good. All right. So we'll run our script, right? Run sh. It runs. We're on localhost, right? And just to make sure it works, we open this preview, and sure enough, we get hello world, just like we did at the beginning. But now we're reading from a variable versus actually returning the string itself. But same result. Cool. So that was the end of that demonstration. I would like to say that, linting and formatting, right? I didn't really go over like a why. I kind of have touched on it throughout, but I just want to reiterate, whether you're working by yourself or whether you're working on a big team of developers, having your code properly linted and formatted, even basic like this, can really go a long way in like organizing your code and kind of making it consistent, right? Pep 8 has a lot of stuff in it, right? And it can be difficult to go back and forth, and especially on a large team, have everybody going back and forth and doing the same thing. Some people read different parts of documentation, right? And like see different stuff or miss stuff or whatever. And so code still isn't properly formatted, isn't properly linted. So using this in a big team will absolutely ensure that everybody is using the same style, right? That everybody's syntax is the same. And that's really powerful because it lets you concentrate on functionality and coding and not so much on the annoying stuff, such as organizing your import statements, right? So anything you can do to kind of automate your workflow, that's what you want to do, right? And Ian. Okay, so the last thing I'll say is another great thing that you can do with this is you can add these types of checks, right, to your not pre-commit obviously, but you can add hooks into like black or flake 8 or any of those into your GitHub Actions pipeline, right, which allows you to check code maybe as you're merging a develop branch into a main branch, right, and reject code, or maybe every time someone tries to merge their branch into develop or whatever, right? You can put these you can put these checks on the server side, And that way you're making sure that people's environments are set up correctly as well, right? That these checks are in fact getting run and people aren't just saying, yeah, I do it, but they're not, right? And then you still get mess into your main branch. So this is a way that's a great way to verify that this is all working, although that can be kind of fixed through, well, I'll just say it, dev containers is one way, or through this, right? Git pod. You could, and I thought about it, right? You could in fact make Git pod set all of this up for you right off the bat. So you don't even have to make these files every time. Another way to do it would be to have a repo with a module called Cookie Cutter, which I will be doing a demo of in the future, which is a way to template GitHub repositories. So let's say, we wanted to reuse this repository, which has like a fast API application and some linting stuff and whatever, right? We can make a template using Cookie Cutter and then copy it every time we want to make a new repository for a fast API application, right? And that way everything comes with it. So lots of ways to do it, but as long as you're doing it, do whatever works for you. And that's all that matters. Cool. Are there any questions that I can answer now that we've gone through this crazy workflow? Hopefully not too crazy.
You can always set up something for automation. Once you have all the settings set up that you like, you can make it so every time you create a new repo, it automatically brings it down for you.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of like that's what Cookie Cutter will do for you, right? Is you just say like create new repo and you fill in some information, the name of the repo. It also uses like Jinja 2 templates to fill out like the README or anything like that. And you can create a brand new repo off a Cookie Cutter template. This is one way to do it. I know there's probably other ways, but yeah, it's one of my favorite tools. I've used that at work for for instance, I had people that wanted a bunch of data scientists and data analysts. They wanted to launch dashboard applications. All the applications were using what's it called? Not Dash. I'll think of it. But I was using the same package, right, to create all the dashboards. And so what I did was I just created a Cookie Cutter, and they would, every time they need to make a new application, it would set up cloud buckets. It would configure service account keys. It would create containers, create a new application out in a Kubernetes cluster. It would do all this crazy stuff, right? And they didn't need to know any of that. All they had to do was say Cookie Cutter, repo, and then it would ask them the proper questions and fill everything in using Jinja 2 templates. So it's like, it is really powerful. I've done some pretty wacky stuff with it. And so definitely check out Cookie Cutter if you haven't already. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. I just really like it. I don't know, David, did you have another way or besides Cookie Cutter?
Well, I created my own a few years back. That's what I was referring to more than anything.
Oh, your own Cookie Cutter? Or?
No, I created my own local kind of automation kind of thing. Anytime I start a new repo, depending on what language, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, and that's the other thing. It doesn't have to be a Python repository. It uses Python, but you could create a repository for anything, really. Like using Cookie Cutter, it doesn't have to be a Python related application. I don't think, off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't see why it would be. But anyway, any other comments or questions about linting or formatting or anything like that? Great. Okay, well, if you do have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me on the Slack channel. Well, just reach out on the Slack channel and someone will help you. Definitely use that Notion template. I'm going to roll back through it. I noticed a couple of things that I missed, like white space and some typos. So I will make sure that is in good shape. If it isn't, please let me know if something doesn't work for you, and I will make sure to get that in there so that people who use this in the future will be able to. Oh, and let me post that Notion template again. I think when people come in, they don't get that chat history. So I will post that one more time. Use that Notion template. and along with, I should have probably added the, let me see, I'll copy link address. I need to add the, oh, and then the link for the repo is in the Notion template, but you can also use the link I just dropped. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming. Remember, if you have a topic to talk about, please reach out to us and we can get you signed up. It doesn't have to be something complex. It can be simple. It can be complex, like whatever you want, something that you're excited about. We're always looking for speakers, and I think that's it. Yeah, we'll see you next time, where we'll hear from Murillo Gustolini, apparently 2023's, one of the 2023's data scientists to watch, just nominated. So we will see you then, and until then, have a good night and a good week.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, everybody.